Welcome, and in today's video we're going to show you the complete installation of a rubber roof system.
So our first job, and one of the most important, is to make sure our roof is clean. So we use a soft broom, we can use a little leaf blower as well. Just make sure all the dust and debris is off of that roof before we start. Right, that is the roof ready for our EPDM or rubber roof. So now it's nice and swept. We're going to be bringing the rubber up onto the roof and getting it unrolled. Right, so obviously when opening these, be careful with your knives because it will cut inside. So we're going to unwrap, take the wrapper off. And then basically this is our rubber. Now, and then obviously when you're pulling the roof out, just be careful. We don't want to be walking off the back end. Right, so we figure out, so obviously this has got to be turned for us. So we're just going to turn it. So, right, so that is the rubber laid out and into position. We've got at least 50 millimeters of a lap on every side of the building. You can trim this down if you want to at this stage, but I just like to leave it long and I'll do it after we've glued it. So now you can either do one of two things. You can get a pole, like a bit of downpipe, and roll the rubber back, which is a brilliant idea, but we haven't got none right now, so we're just going to fold it back halfway, like so. So before we started recording, I've already glued the back half, so you can see the glue there. And now I'm pulling it back. About 100 mil is exposed, and I'm going to glue out the rest of the roof. So to apply the glue, normal paint roller, cheapy cheap because it's going to get ruined. And then this is the adhesive, and it is a wet lay system, so we don't want to let this dry. And this is the way I do it. I'll just pour some on the roof, and then we just start moving it around. And then we do the same on this pile. Right, here I'm only using a single glue system. Because this is just a hay store, we don't need to go crazy with this. The trims are going to hold the rubber around the edge. But if you're doing a garden room, an extension or something of that nature, a bit more substantial, you're going to want to go with their classic Bond 2 glue system. So basically there's a perimeter fixing around the edge. Just remember, when we're painting the roof, you're not trying to get your money's worth. We want to get a nice decent layer. So none of this trying to spread it. We just want to get a nice coat over everything, because at the end of the day this is what's holding your roof down. So even though you want a decent cover, on the other hand what we don't want is stuff like that. So we don't want lumps of paint or piles of paint either. So make sure you get all of those out. Right, so that's what we're after, a nice even coat, and while it's still wet, we need to get our rubber put back over the top. While I'm rolling that out, another thing to note, we're using the 1mm system, again, because this is a hay store, but Rubber for Roofs do supply a 1.2 and a 1.5mm thick, which both are compliant with building control. So if you are doing an extension or a conservatory, etc., they'll cover it. Right, now once we've got it laid out, we take ourselves a stiff broom. This is not the best, but it's what we got. And then we're going to start brushing it flat. So I'll go up the centre. This is the way I do it. And then I go to the left at an angle, working our way forward. You start to see all the bubbles come out that way, like so. And then we do the same the other way. Now you will have to do this a few times as the glue starts to dry, but a little tip for you, get that down there. If you relax the rubber, but is what we normally do, we relax the rubber overnight, so we lay it out, leave it for a night, and then we glue it. But due to time restraints, this is the way we've got to do it. but it will help. It just means we've now got to brush it a lot more until it's flat. But the first run should get the bulk out. You should see it nice and flat now. So now what we're going to do, all these little bubbles here, there, we're just going to keep brushing until they're completely gone. And then we'll show you the trims. Right, we've been sweeping, we're happy with how flat it is now. So once you're happy, you can stop sweeping and it's time to move on to your trims. Don't be intimidated by them, they are super easy to install. So this is an upstand, which we're going to install in a minute. And this is part of your gutter trim. And there's a second piece that goes with that, which is there. And again, we're going to show you all that, but our first step is to reduce the overhang we've got to about 50 millimeters. You can measure this and mark it if you want to. You can use scissors. I like to use a straight blade, which is this, and then I'll just gauge it by eye, but again, you can measure it if you want to. And then all we're doing is just reducing the lap that we've got down to around 50 millimeters. This is all covered up, so you haven't got to be 1,000,000%, but we don't want too much and we don't want too little. So we're going to do that around the whole perimeter of the roof, so 50 millimeters. The only difference is on the gutter trim side, we're going to leave that, and I'm going to show you why when we come to install it. So our first trim we're going to be installing is our upstands. So we've just chucked one on to show you. This basically gives a little barrier for water, so it can't just come off any of the sides that you don't want it to. And when it comes to these, all we do in the corners, so we've installed this one so we can show you, we need to do a little pig's ear. So this one is just flat, and then we tuck that under, and then we rotate this one over the top like so. And then these trims just butt up to each other. And then all we do is we just roll this over, push it down a little bit, don't go mad. And then we take some nylon topped nails, ring shank nails, and we just nail into the pre-drilled holes. Now we don't go all the way with these, we leave them about 3 millimeters proud, 5 millimeters maybe. And we're just going to nail this all the way through. And the reason we leave them slightly proud is so we can remove the protection without them getting stuck behind our fixings, which is a nightmare. Trust me, I forgot here or there. And then all we do is we just tap these in, remembering we're not trying to absolutely send them. That's why I'm choking the hammer, as they call it. I'm just using it very lightly, just so it's snug. And that's going to allow these to move slightly when the weather changes. So these are the corners. They're designed for gutters and upstand corners like we've got here. So all we do with a corner like this is we take a hammer, or you can even knock them with a screwdriver or something. I'll just do this, give them a twist, and we remove these little caps, and then we're left with that, and that way we can slot that up over our corner. And then what we do is we use a nylon top nail, same as we've used here, and we just nail off, but we're only doing one side. And that is what we're left with. So when it comes to our joins, the way I like to do it is I go up to my corner with one end, and then I'll just come next to this, and I'm just going to leave myself a little 5 millimeter gap, because remember, this is UPVC and it likes to expand and contract when the sun hits it, and obviously being a roof gets a lot of sun. And then to cut it, I just use a multi-tool and I just run it through. Now, as long as our joins are half decent, you're okay, because we've got some covers for either here, and obviously we've got our corners that you've already seen. So we just slide this into position. Another thing to note, these trims are available in white and black. You don't always have to use the anthracite like we are, but this is just the colour we've chose for this project. So there's our little gap that I said. So we've got a 5 millimeter gap there, and then we put a cover that comes with our kits. Looks like that, and all we do with these, we literally start on the bottom, hook it over the centre, and we just stretch it over the top, and that is our seam covered up, and they just sit there clipped on. Right, we're going to install the rest of these upstands and then we're going to show you how to install the gutter trim. Right, so when it comes to the gutter trim, we've just pinned it in place, obviously, because I can't do it by myself, so we've just pinned it loosely so you can see. This is the underside, so we've got a small batten here to step us off of the fascia, and then we've got the ramp section of this trim at the top, and then we use pins without a head, and then we just pin that flush with the top. Like so we'll chuck some pins along there. So when it comes to the gutter trim, it is two parts. So we've installed our first section underneath, and now we've got this second piece. So what we do with that is that slots over the top until it's flat with the roof, and then what I like to do, it's a bit difficult because normally there's two of us, but I pull the roof tight as I nail in. So I put my nail in while I'm putting tension on the rubber, and then I put my pins in. Remember, don't sink them all the way, same as the other, and then we're going to remove that protection. Like so, and if you just pop them over, it doesn't leave any bits around the fixings, and then we can just tighten those up. When it comes to trimming the rubber, so we don't trim this one down until the end, so now all we do, we run our knife along the bottom of our trim, so now our rubber comes all the way through, so any water that gets behind is only going to go back into your gutters. Right, so with the joiners on these, same principle, just slightly different shape, so we're going to hook onto the bottom, and we're just going to click it over like so, and that's our joiner done. Right, the last trim to install is the gutter corner. So it's the same trim we did on the other corner, except we're not going to remove both tabs, we're just going to remove the one for the corner we need. So for us it's this one, and what that does, it just allows us to cap the side off. Then we're going to nail that on, and that is job's a good one.
I hope this video has been a massive help to you guys. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the like button, leave a little comment and subscribe.